Hi class, in Chapter 5 our focus is going to be ratios. We'll be introduced to ratios in 5.1, look at ratio representations in 5.2, we'll be writing equivalent ratios in 5.3 and modeling ratios in 5.4. When we get to the middle of Chapter 5, we'll start to use tables to represent equivalent ratios as well as graphs in 5.6. And to kind of finish up Chapter 5, we'll look at using multiple ratio representations to solve problems in 5.7, and we'll be introduced to unit rates in 5.8. If you take a look at page 307, in 5.1, our learning targets for today, we'll be writing ratios as part-to-part and part-to-whole relationships. We'll be representing ratios using models, and we'll be using models to determine equivalent ratios. One key term in 5.1 will be ratios, so please make sure that you're marking your text in order to get a good understanding of the definition of a ratio. Let's take a look at page 308, problem 1, comparing quantities. Up at the top it says the school colors at Riverview Middle School are a shade of bluish green and white. The art teacher, Mr. Wraith, knows to get the correct color of bluish green, it takes 3 parts blue paint to every 2 parts yellow paint. There are different ways to think about this relationship and make comparisons. One way is to draw a picture or a model. From the model, you can make comparisons of the different quantities. You can look at blue parts to yellow parts. You can look at yellow parts to blue parts. You can look at blue parts to total parts. And finally, you can look at yellow parts to total parts. Each comparison is called a ratio. A ratio is a comparison of 2 quantities that uses division. The first 2 comparisons are part-to-part ratios. We see those 2 listed there. Those are the part-to-part ratios. And the last 2 comparisons are part-to-whole ratios because you are comparing one of the parts, either the blue or the yellow, to the total number of parts. So if you take a look at the 2 tables at the bottom of page 308, whether you are looking at part-to-part ratios or part-to-whole ratios, you can write ratios in 3 different ways. You can either write them in words, you can write them with a colon, or you can write them in fractional form. Take a look at the top of page 309. It says, notice that when you write a ratio using the total number of parts, you are also writing a fraction. A fraction is a ratio that shows a part-to-whole relationship. So let's take a look at number 1. It says, suppose Mr. Wraith needs 2 parts blue paint and 5 parts red paint to make a purplish paint. Letter A says write all the possible part-to-part ratios using colons and fractional form, and then letter B says write all the possible part-to-whole ratios using colons and fractional form. So go ahead and do that with your group members. So here's what you should have for letter A. I have 2 blue to 5 red with the colon, and I have 2 blue to 5 red in fractional form as well. For letter B, I'm writing all the possible part-to-whole ratios. First one with a colon, 2 blue to 7 total. In the fractional form, you'd have 2 blue over the 7 total. And then finally 5 red to 7 total using the colon, and then 5 red over 7 total in fractional form. Let's go ahead and move to page 310 and take a look at problem 2, muffins to start your morning. It says that the local bakery sells muffins in 6-packs. They sell the muffins in this variety. So you have 3 blueberry muffins, you have 2 pumpkin muffins, and you have 1 bran muffin. Number 1 says to write the ratio that expresses each relationship. So go ahead and do letters A through F with your group members. When you are done, down at the bottom of the page, and number 2 is going to ask you which ratios are part to part and which ones are part to whole. So go ahead and do number 1 and number 2 with your group members. So here's what I have for A through F. Notice that each of my ratios are written out in the fraction form. For letter A, I have 3 blueberry to 6 total. For letter B, we have 2 pumpkin to 6 total. For letter C, 1 bran to 6 total. Letter D, 3 blueberry to 2 pumpkin. Letter E, 1 bran to 2 pumpkin. And letter F, 3 blueberry to 1 bran. If you take a look at number 2, letters A, B, and C are part to whole ratios, and letter D, E, and F are part to part ratios. Let's take a look at number 3 at the top of page 311. It is asking you to complete the table to show the number of muffins in each variety pack. So go ahead and get the table filled out with your group members. So here's what your table should look like for number 3 with all of the correct values filled in for the missing blanks. I want to just break down one part of the table to make sure we have a good understanding of how we did come up with our answers. So let's take a look at that right now. So let's take a look at the circled portion of the table. I'm looking at the number of variety packs and the number of blueberry muffins. If I have 1 variety pack and I have 3 blueberry muffins, I'm trying to determine how many blueberry muffins that I would have then if I had 3 variety packs. So you can almost look at this in the similar way as how we look at equivalent fractions. If I have 1/3, that's going to be equal to 3 over what? And my answer, as you can see from filling out the table, is 9. Let's take a look at number 4. It asks us to analyze the table and describe the relationship between each number of muffins in any given variety pack. Let's look at letter A together so that we have a good understanding of how we need to do number 4, and then I'm going to let you finish up number 4 on your own. So let's take a look at letter A. We are looking at the number of blueberry muffins related to the number of bran muffins. So what you want to do is come up with every single ratio from the table that you can based off of the number of blueberry muffins related to the number of bran muffins. So there are 5 ratios that I come up with: 30 to 10, 3 to 1, 9 to 3, 18 to 6, and 24 to 8. So you can tell then from that the ratio for the number of blueberry muffins to the number of bran muffins is always going to be 3 to 1. So this is what I want you to do for the rest of number 4. It does carry over all the way on to the next page, page 312, all the way to letter I. So go ahead and do letter B through letter I with your group members. So here is what B through G should look like. What I'm going to focus on is the ratio over to the right. Those are all the other equivalent ratios that you should have come up with from the table that I also have written down for each letter. But for letter B, you should have 3 blue to 2 pumpkin. Letter C, 2 pumpkin to 1 bran. Letter D, 1 bran to 3 blueberry. Letter E, 1 bran to 2 pumpkin. Letter F, 2 pumpkin to 3 blueberry. And letter G, 3 blueberry to 6 total. And finally, for letter H and letter I, again, just focusing on the ratios to the right, 2 pumpkin to 6 total. And for letter I, 1 bran to 6 total. Go ahead and take a look at number 5 and try to determine which ratios in question 4, all of the ones that we just went over, are part-to-part ratios and which ones are part-to-whole ratios. Letters A through F, would be examples of part-to-part ratios, and letter G, H, and I would be examples of part-to-whole ratios. So let's go ahead and take a look at number 6 then to finish up problem number 2. It says that each model shows a ratio of muffins to juice boxes. What they want you to figure out is which models show the same ratio of muffins to juice boxes, and then make sure that you explain your reasoning. So go ahead and do that to finish up problem 2 with your group members. So what I did for number 6 was write down the ratios for each of the models, and based off of those ratios you should be able to see that model 1 is equivalent to model 3 and model 5 that we see over here on the left, and then over on the right you can see that model 2 and model 4 are also equivalent ratios. If we look first at the left, model 1 has the ratio of 3 muffins to 9 juice boxes. Model 3 has the ratio of 2 muffins to 6 juice boxes, and model 5 has the ratio of 1 muffin to 3 juice boxes. So those are all equivalent. Over on the right, model 2 has the ratio of 2 muffins to 8 juice boxes, and model 4 has the ratio of 3 muffins to 12 juice boxes. So that's why those two ratios would be equivalent. If we turn to page 313, problem 3 is going to be homework for you tonight. I want you to take a look at number 1 and answer letters A, B, and C. That will be it for lesson 5.1 on the introduction to ratios. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.